Hello, well-being of women. My name is Fatima Nabage.
Hi, I'm Dr. Becky Mawson, and we're here at the University of Sheffield to tell you a little bit more about our Hormone Effect project. Right, I'm
Yes.
going to let you start. So, go on, tell me a bit more about the project that we've done for the wellbeing of women.
Well, the project for the well-being of women is the side effects of contraception project, especially in ethnic minority women, and how research, healthcare workers communicated these side effects to the women. This project was born out of a bigger project that I was a part of as a community link research worker, and we tried to understand the perspective of ethnic minority women when it came to contraception in general, hormonal contraception. I'd like to put that in. And then one of the reoccurring theme when we were doing our data analysis was the side effects and how they felt really misinformed and they didn't really understand what they put in their bodies, and when they tried to bring it up with their healthcare professionals, they weren't taken seriously and they felt dismissed. So we took that information and we developed it into what we have currently done with the project.
Yeah, and it's been a quick project because
It
you
has.
turned it around in 5 months, which is amazing.
Thank you.
So talk me through what happened during the project. So tell me about like who we spoke to and like what we did in terms of like focus groups and workshops and
Okay, so initially we wanted to have, three different focus groups and then a big workshop at the end to sort of feedback to the groups to show them what we've seen after we've sort of had the focus groups. But unfortunately, because of the time constraints, we've had to do two focus groups and one big workshop. So we spoke to a diverse community of women. We asked them about what they understood when it came to contraception side effects, how their healthcare professionals spoke to them initially, and then a lot of women gave us their in inputs and what they had experienced. One of the things that we came to understand was that a lot of women wanted to be informed so they could make informed decisions about their contraception, but unfortunately they felt dismissed, unheard, and sometimes pressurized by their healthcare professionals
yeah.
to take on certain contraception that they were not comfortable with.
Yeah.
Can I say it?
Well, yeah. What I was going to ask was, I was going to ask about like, so give us a flavour of the women that came to the workshops, because I think we had nearly, was it 40,
Yeah.
40 women involved in the project. Tell me about like who they were, where are they from, like
Okay.
different community groups.
Yeah. So we had some women who came from, Southeast Asian women. We had some African women. We had Arabian women. So it was a really diverse sort of group of women. And even with like their age, it really ranged from women who were perimenopausal and just women who were just starting out their lives as well. So we spoke to, some women who didn't have children, some had children, and some women who had gone on contraception because of other, female hormonal
Yeah.
problems like PCOS or endometriosis. And so we tried to gain as much insight as we could in regards to our demography so that if even if it wasn't representative of everybody, we had a big chunk of representation where you could really see that a lot of thought went into everything so that nobody felt sort of
Yeah.
misrepresented in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that was great was that we had many different languages
Yeah.
spoken. There was Arabic, Somali, Urdu,
Yeah.
Punjabi.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
where English wasn't necessarily a first language, because I think that was one of the sort of aims of your project, was to try and talk to women where they might have issues maybe reading some of the
Yeah.
medical leaflets and things. And I think we massively managed to achieve that, which was great. And we worked with our partners like Israq,
Yeah.
who was a Somali community. Who else did we work with? We worked with,
It was Hafsa, but Hafsa's not part of any
yeah,
community issue.
yeah,
So no, a lot of it was from the Women's Voices
yeah,
groups. We recruited some people from the Women's Voices, and it sort of snowballed from there.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then just people just showed up
yeah,
to the focus groups wanting to be heard. And I think this really addresses the, issue that says ethnic minority women do not want to be included in research, because this project has shown that if you go to them, they will tell you probably more than
Yeah, yeah,
you asked for.
yeah, yeah.
So it really highlights that, oh, like it's really intentional to exclude a whole
Yeah,
demographic of
yeah, yeah.
people.
Well, we know women aren't represented in a lot of medical research, and we know
Yeah.
women of color are not represented even more. So, but yeah, tell us a story about when the Somali focus group that you did with Israq.
Yeah, so I did a focus group at ISRAC, which is the Somali Community Center, on Friday, on a Friday. And so initially we were supposed to just have 8 people,
And
which is what we planned for.
we
So
cost it.
we costed, we planned for it, and it was going to be sort of like a lunch and a focus group. So when we started talking to the participants that came, it sort of snowballed throughout the center that we were having a women's discussion focusing on contraception and side effects and healthcare provider information. And before I knew it, we had almost 20 women there. And everybody wanted their opinion to be heard. And we had people that were, older women who were grandmothers or great grandmothers. And we had women who had just gotten married, all trying to get their perspectives understood, all trying to explain how, when they start contraception and maybe their hesitancy towards it, and if they had reached out to their community trying to understand um, one thing or the other. And we had like different stages of womanhood,
Mm.
different journeys, but all with sort of the same stigmatization when it comes to healthcare provider access, especially when it came to postnatal contraception
Yeah.
advice. Yeah, a lot of the women felt like they were being criticized by the healthcare practitioners. The healthcare practitioners were, really, really impatient with them. They didn't want to explain how contraception after baby worked, because one thing about the Somali culture is that the women are not encouraged to go on contraception prior to having their
Mm.
baby. So
But I
when,
think that's across the board, isn't it? It's something
yeah,
we found like across like quite a few of the sessions we've done, which I think is really, really important finding, is about, fear of using contraception before you have a baby.
yeah, a lot of the demographics that we have spoken to, so the Arabs, the Somalis, the I want to say Nigerians,
There is more in Africa than
yeah,
Nigeria.
yeah. So the ethnic minority populations that we have been able to connect with have all repeatedly said that they didn't want to have anything to do with contraception until after they had had their babies. And this is due because historically speaking, like whenever women had gone to the doctors, they have been used for experiments, for sterilizations. And so it sort of made that like deep rooted in lack of trust in their healthcare professionals. So they, went back into their communities and they advised against going to the doctor for anything. So that way, when you get pregnant or you get married the first time, the community elders would say to you, oh, don't put any contraception in your body until after you've had the baby, so that we can see if you can actually have a baby. And
Because
so,
that's really important, isn't
yeah,
it? Like, and I think that's something maybe um, like we don't appreciate as healthcare professionals is the importance of having a fertility, of having a baby.
yeah,
And I think that was something that definitely came out. That fear of it affecting your fertility
yeah,
was a huge sort of fear for many women, wasn't it?
yeah, it was. But after we've explained it to them that, oh, regardless of whether or not you go on contraception, your fertility reduces. So I think it has to do with the fact that the women are not told that. So they think the sole reason why they're not, having babies immediately after they have taken out their contraception or they've stopped, it's because more or less, they're infertile now. But we've come to explain to them that no, like regardless, because of age, your fertility reduces.
Yeah, and I think because that is something like it's that sort of change in cultures, isn't it, of women having babies later,
Yeah,
which actually then leads to drop in fertility.
yeah,
Whereas maybe, for example, in sort of home countries, say Somalia, they would have babies earlier,
yeah,
and where their fertility wasn't different. So
yeah,
there's that kind of change as women sort of work and education.
yeah. It is yeah, because of that, but also it's because of the change.
Mm.
So earlier, maybe in like the 90s or the 80s, um ethnic minority women generally got married earlier. So they would have babies, and they had this, community, large family units. And so this wasn't something that they ever had to consider in terms of contraception. But when they started moving out of their home countries and coming abroad, those traditions had to shift. And now the girls are, going to school, some are going to university, and they want to delay having a baby until they have, all their qualifications, all their jobs sorted out. And so that is why we've seen that maybe this generation of women are like starting contraception earlier than they would have traditionally.
Yeah, and I think so. So one of the other things I wanted to touch on was like I'd say pretty much every single woman that came to our focus group had had a side effect from a contraceptive, like across the board. And they often spoke of, feeling like they had to sort of trial and error lots of different types of contraception to find one that worked. And I think it was some of the women who were from Somalia who were saying about, the impact on their mood of the implant. Tell us more about like the things they were saying about the implant and what happened when they went to ask for the implant to be removed.
So some of the Somali women reported that, when they had the implant inserted, it was marketed to them by the healthcare professional as this revolutionarily change contraception that was going to be valid for 3 years, and so they felt a bit pressured to have it put in because it's new, it's on the market, you don't have to think about it for 3 years. They just told them so many stuff to sort of inform their choice that, or get this. But then when they went back home, they realized that, weight gain, there was so much depression looming over you, migraines, even their children noticed that like their moms were not behaving like they normally would. And so when they went back to the healthcare professional, it was like, can you take this out? I don't like it. I would like my copper, the hormonal, the
non-hormonal,
yeah, the one put back. And so the healthcare provider was like, no, we can't take it out for you just yet. Can you not leave it for like 3 to 6 months and come back and we could do a review? And then the lady was like, no, like you have to take it out because it's ruining my mood. I don't like the person that I am right now. And the healthcare professional had said to her that they couldn't take it out because she was going to cost the NHS some money.
Yeah.
And that was something that she then got really agitated, and she started fighting, and she was like, you have to take it out. And if she hadn't resorted to that anger, I don't think they would have taken it out for her.
But there was a number of women that mentioned about they'd been told by healthcare professionals that they couldn't have one of their long-acting contraceptives removed because of the cost. And I think one of the questions that I asked in the focus group was, do they think that would happen to me as a white woman? And across the board, everyone said, there's no way. This is something that's happening to women, for ethnic minority groups, Black and ethnic minority groups, where there's more pressure to keep contraceptives and they're not believed when they go with side effects. I think that was really hard to deal with. It was
really hard to deal with, and it was really interested that they wanted to get the perspective of white women. But I think like generally white women too might be, the pain might not be taken seriously, but it's just that historically ethnic minority women have been disregarded far too many times, exploited far too many times, especially in medicine, for them to just believe that, this doesn't happen to any other demographic, it's just me.
Yeah. And that's why it's so good to like talk about it and get it out in the open, which I think was really, really good part of this project. And I wanted to touch on because one of the aims of the project is to try and create something that gives back to women, about the things that we've discussed. Like I thought it'd be useful to talk about, like, because we talked about leaflets and how women wanted information to be given to them. And so, one of the things that we've talked about before was that women felt that when they went to their GP or the practice nurse, that they were expected to go with the knowledge. And that there was a challenge of feeling like all they were given was like a leaflet. And I thought it was quite useful to talk about like what they did with the leaflets.
So a group, a large amount of the participants that did come for the focus groups said that when they had gone to the healthcare practitioner and expressed that they wanted to be put on any type of contraception, they were given a leaflet.
Yeah,
And
they're usually the family planning leaflets,
yeah,
which is, you know, which we all know, we've all seen, we've all
we've
had
all
given to
seen.
us at some point.
Yeah.
And what did they say when they walked out the room?
Well, they put it in the bin.
Yeah,
That's what they
yeah,
did.
yeah.
They put it in the bin, and the ones who didn't put it in the bin had to flip through it and realized that it was filled with medical jargon that they couldn't understand. And some of them had taken it home and given it to their daughters or their sons to help them translate it. But they were very conscious of the fact that they were exposing their children to these levels of information that they didn't think it was appropriate for them to have. So a lot of the time, and also like when they were on the bus, they felt like they couldn't bring it out to read it because everybody would know about what they're
Yeah.
sort of reading.
I think that was
So
eye-opening.
yeah,
Like, so in the workshop, we just got loads of different types of leaflets, didn't we? And we
yeah,
just put them out on the table. We had colouring pens and post-its, and we got people to kind of to
yeah,
talk about it. And I think it was really eye-opening for me to look at the leaflets through their eyes,
yeah.
because often as a medic you kind of open it, oh yeah, it's got all the information in
Information,
it,
yeah,
but actually when you open it, it's just a page of words,
that's true.
you know. And I think so I want you to tell us a bit more about like what you're going to create, like what the plan is, what we're in the midst of creating, because you're planning on some, there's a starter just doing like two kind of very basic leaflets,
Yeah,
aren't you?
yeah. Yeah, so coming out of the workshop, we realized that a lot of the leaflets were very exclusionary, especially, you know, in language, in visual aid. There were a lot of pictures that nobody wanted to see. But yeah, coming from that, we're trying to create something that is as basic can be, so people can pick it up, you know, read it, understand what the side effects are. We're focusing on two leaflets for now. One is going to address just, you know, side effects of contraception, depending on whatever it is that you want. It's going to give you like all the facts that you need to know. Not too much that you're put off, but just enough that you feel like you're making an informed choice. Another one that we're trying to create is for contraception after baby,
Yeah.
because nobody wants to talk about contraception at that 6 week checkup. They feel like, you know, they're in pain. And sometimes, you know, when the midwives do their rounds, even before the mother is discharged, they want to talk to her about contraception. Like, she's already in so much distress. Secondly, like, they've already felt so judged by the healthcare provider. And that's, I think this is like a certain dynamic, because when you've just had a baby, you're as vulnerable can be. And then you have your doctor or your nurse sort of pushing contraception onto you, and you already feel like, oh, you know, I've been here 3 times in the last, you know, 4 years, and this doctor is probably trying to tell me to stop having babies, and they're trying to force it on me. So yeah, we're trying to develop something that is gonna be as easy, you know, for ethnic minority women to just pick up and read at their own convenience, so they can make,
Even maybe in pregnancy, you
even
know.
yeah, in pregnancy, so they can make an informed decision at the end of the line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And because that comes back to what we were talking about in terms of the often, so the women that we've spoken to from our communities won't use contraception before they get married.
yeah.
So the first point that they're thinking about a contraceptive is when they're had a
Been,
baby.
yeah,
And so I think for me that's a real crux time for us to
yeah.
get this information out there. So that's amazing. So I'm just having a look at my list of things I wanted to make sure that I asked you. So we talked a bit about impact. What's the big thing that you've personally gained from this project? Like what have you gained from this scholarship that you've done?
Um, I think for me, the one thing that I'm very grateful for, you know, the scholarship, because it has helped me explore this niche of, you know, contraception, because women's health is a fundamental human right, and, you know, we need to understand it. But it has shown me that there's nothing, however small you think something is, it's not. Is when you start exploring it that you realize that, okay, you know, there are people like me who are going through a lot of medical issues, not just with contraception, it feeds into everything else. But if I can advocate for them, if I can put them in a room and ask them, okay, what do you need me to do, then I can have the information that I need to go into, the spaces that we're not traditionally in, to help advance care for women, especially Muslim women, because I'm a Muslim woman. So especially them, but just ethnic minority women in general, advocate for them. And it has also made me realize that,
Like how amazing you are. Yeah,
yeah,
because
thank
what I was
you.
going to say is like yeah, like I think it's a really, really important space to be in.
Yeah,
And what do you think about it when people say to you, oh, you know, we don't include, ethnic minority women or non-English speaking
yeah.
women because they don't want to be involved in research? Like, has that been your experience? It's definitely not been my experience.
So there's a lot of talk about, excluding ethnic minority women, especially those who do not understand or articulate the English language, and it's making it look like they don't want to be included. But being a part of this research has made me understand that no, women like to talk about women's
Oh
issues,
yes.
and and a lot of the times they don't do it for themselves, because it's, they're looking at it from a point of, if I can share my experience, then my daughter doesn't have to go
Yeah.
through this, then my granddaughter doesn't have to go through this, which is really amazing. With the focus group that I did in the Somali community, the people that could speak fluent English weren't up to five. A lot of the other people were traditional, they spoke their traditional languages, and we had different women in the groups translating on their behalf. So just so everybody's perspective is heard, everybody's perspective is understood, everybody's perspective is, taken into account. And there are certain things that might be, unique to certain demography of people, because, the highest amount of women who come to England who have gone, through FGM are from ethnic minority. So when they open up about, going through that, and what that looked like for them after they had their baby, and what that looked like for them after they got married, now we know, and now we can tell other people, like, it's, you're not the exception to the rule. There are other people who have gone through this, so you're not alone.
Mm.
And in that way we can help provide equitable health access for everybody.
Mm.
Yeah,
And I think it's that what I'm always overwhelmed with whenever we do these sort of projects is the thirst to make a difference.
yeah,
Like, women are hungry for change
they are.
and they've had enough. And I think that's the thing that always keeps me pushing forwards, is that, we there is a complete thirst for people to make a difference. And
Yeah,
so I think it's projects like this, that funding like this is so important to get them going, and hopefully we can just keep the movement in the right
yeah.
direction. And that brings me on to like, what's next? Like, what would your dream job look like? And sort of, I know you have huge plans to change the world, but like, what would your plans be, if your ideal research project came up, like, over the next of 12 months, 2 years, what would you like to be doing?
I think what is next for me would be to take what we've had right now and, scale it.
Mm.
Because this is just Sheffield, this is just, me starting out. On like a bigger scale, in 2 years, I would have wanted to have addressed, little pockets of all over the country, to sort of understand if what we've found in Sheffield is, well, we know it's not local to only us, but I would like to scale the project in a way that would improve how, healthcare communication occurs with ethnic minority, moving sort of contraception counseling, contraception um, understanding out of hospitals and into community centers,
Yeah.
because a lot of my participants have told me that they're more comfortable talking about healthcare, or specifically their contraception use, in their communities. Apparently it was a thing before COVID and it just stopped.
And we have to make a plug for digital as well, because
Yeah,
that was, even though like I
it
sound like I'm
was.
coercing everyone into digital, but like the women wanted something that was private on their
Yeah,
own phone, that was
yeah,
in their own language that could give them basic information.
Yes.
And I think that would be really exciting.
So yeah, if we can fund that, we should. A digital resource is actually preferable to these ethnic minority women than a physical resource, because it gives us that added layer of secrecy. There's this concept in Islam, it's called haya, which is modesty. So modesty in speech, modesty in what you consume, modesty in how you show yourself. And so with the digital resource, it's just you on your phone. You pick it up, you put in, the resource, the website, and then everything that you need to know about contraception just comes out. And that way, even if there's like medical jargon that you don't understand, you could easily highlight it and find the definition online.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Well, thank you very much for listening to us. I hope that was useful, and we'll see you soon. Bye.